Waterford general election, and the entire process, it has to be said, is running very smoothly. It's very clear that everybody is aware of their jobs, and I'm going to have a quick chat now with Maurice Cummins. And Maurice, you've been here since the very start this morning. What's your reaction to the tally figures?
Very encouraging so far anyway, but as you say, there's less than half the boxes tallied. But it's looking like David Cullinan, John Cummins and Mary Butler, and a fight for the last seat between David McGuinness and Matt Shanahan, with Matt Shanahan probably favoured at the moment, but as boxes that are in, they could be favouring one or the other or both, so it is very hard to call in that regard. But we're very encouraged with the vote in the city and the county in particular. And I suppose it's all as a result of a very strong canvass throughout the length and breadth of the county, not over the last 3 weeks, but over the last 3 or 4 years really there, where we've concentrated on being out. John has, any day that he's not in the Senate, he was out with the councillors canvassing and that. But I don't know how it's going nationally there, but I think the Sinn Féin vote has held up very well here in Waterford in comparison to the 21% that was in the exit polls. I think they could be, at the moment they're heading around 35. Okay, they got 40 the last time, but I think it is a good vote for Sinn Féin, which puts them in the fight for the last seat also, you know. So it's interesting, as always.
Certainly follow all of the developments. Thank you. So I think we're going to take a short break here from the Waterford Town Centre. Back at 11.
WLR News at 11 o'clock. Good morning, I'm Jordan Norris. Over a third of the boxes are open as the count is underway at SETU for the general election. We can now cross live to our WLR News and Current Affairs team on the Cork Road. I'm joined live now by Kyle Butler. Kyle, some interesting findings so far, but still a long way to go.
Certainly is a long way to go, Jordan. A very good morning to you. The tallies are kind of coming to a close now, so a lot of them, we're coming to halfway of the boxes being opened, and the tallies are being sent across to the main building here in SCTU on the Cork Road. And what we're seeing here is some development in regards to who's actually leading. So we're going to start off by looking at the city, right? So David Cullinane is doing very well in the city at the moment. So 122 out of 180, that was one box in Ballybeg, and that went to David Cullinane. So 122 votes out of 180. And in the second box in Ballybeg, 87 out of 122 votes were again for David Cullinane. But taking a look at the real tallies that we can actually see here on our live stream for any of our viewers looking at our live stream on WRFM.com, David Cullinane is now at 28.6% or 6,357 votes. He is then also afterwards followed by John Cummins on 17.9%. Then after that is Mary Butler on 14.6%, and then Matt Shanahan on 10.9%. But what's quite interesting, Jordan, is when you move west of the county, you can see a kind of difference in voting trends. So out there, Conor McGuinness is doing very well in the Dungarvan area. So the tally sheets are what we would know as an indication as to how the vote is actually going to go. So just looking here, for example, at Cappoquin, we can see here on the tally sheets, Conor McGuinness is doing very well there, but also Mary Butler is doing very well in the west of the county. And I actually just got access to one of the boxes opened in Portlaw, and a lot of people would know Mary is from Portlaw, and she is the lead there as well, Jordan. So look, it is a lot of development here this morning, but just to kind of paint a picture for our listeners on air, what's happening is sorry, Jennifer. What's happening is we can see Mary Butler is doing very well here as well. So it is all to play for, Jordan.
Thanks very much for that, Kyle. Meanwhile, in Waterford City, as Kyle mentioned, 15 candidates are contesting the 4 seats available. As mentioned by Kyle, David Cullinane looks to be holding the lead with about 38% of boxes tallied. And speaking at the count centre this morning, he says the overall vote between the 2 Sinn Féin candidates, the other being Conor McGuinness, it is holding up quite strong.
It seems that our geographical spread is working for us. I'm polling strongly in the city. It seems Conor McGuinness is doing very well in the county. Our overall vote between the two of us is holding strong, so I think we're in contention for 2 seats. We should have had a running mate the last time and we left a seat behind us, so obviously we had a strategy to win 2 seats. Conor McGuinness was a first class candidate. We're in a battle for 2 seats. It's by no means certain, and we'll have to wait and see now over the next hour or two.
And joining us for a look at the national picture is Newstalk political correspondent Sean Defoe.
Nationally, what we're seeing are strong performances for Sinn Féin and Fine Gael. The Social Democrats also polling strongly and will be in the hunt to add seats where it wasn't expected, especially in the Dublin constituencies. Fianna Fáil could still be the largest party, but a bit of a down day compared to expectations. On the flip side then of the good performances, the Green Party looks to be having a rough day and every seat will be a fight, with early tallies having party leader Roger O'Gorman in a battle to keep his seat. One constituency many people will be paying attention to is Dublin Central, where based on tallies so far, Jerry the Monk Hutch has around 13% of the vote and could be in the shake-up for the final seat, though that may be skewed by geography of the constituency at this early stage.
Waterford Sport.
With Otto Boland Fiat. Test drive the roomier Fiat 600 today. It's the Italian upgrade.
Kilrossenty take on Russell Rovers of Cork this afternoon with the Munster Junior Club Hurling Championship title up for grabs. The Green and Gold are into the final for the first time, having beaten Fine Kilmeedy of Limerick and the Banner of Clare. Throw-in in Páirc Uí Rinn is at 1 o'clock. We'll have updates throughout thanks to Gavin Whelan. While Medelago take on Knockanana of Wicklow in the All-Ireland Junior Club Camogie Championship semi-final this afternoon. It's a 1:30 throw-in in Enniscorthy as the Munster champions face the Leinster champions. Sports news on WLR is with thanks to Otto Boland. For all your Waterford general election news this weekend, keep up to date on air and across all our online platforms and on WLRFM.com.
Get into the festive spirit with amazing Christmas value at Aldi. A choice of festive party food, including mini veggie spring rolls from just 99 cents.
Welcome back to our special Daisha Today here at the, we'll call it the Outside Broadcast Centre. Dean and Keane is with the SETU Audiovisual, has set up a fabulous system between the two of them. We are live on the radio. We're going across many different platforms as well in terms of our social media, multi-platforms, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and whatever you're having yourself. Thanks everybody for joining us on Daisha Today. We're going to be going through for the next hour on this special programme from our studio all the different machinations of what we are learning as the minutes happen, and we will have updates throughout the hour in terms of the tallies. So Paul Mooney, who is the editor of the Munster Express, joins me now. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Damien. Thanks.
Good to talk to you. Dean, if you can put up on the screen there, please, and we will talk to our listeners, whether they be in Turinina or Passage or wherever the case may be. So, we have 46% of the boxes tallied. So just to explain the tallies very simply, they are boxes that are opened, they're sorted on the tables, and then the tally men and women, they basically record the first preference votes for each candidate. So we're going to go through them, I suppose, from the top. And maybe, Paul Mooney, if you'd like to go through them from the top. We've got nearly 50% of the boxes tallied. So, Mary Butler.
Mary Butler, yeah, she looks like she's...
Just hold the mic up a bit closer to you there.
Sorry, yeah. She looks like she's in second place, if that's correct.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, because I know it's awkward to see from your angle there. I'll call them out specifically, okay?
Yeah.
Mary Butler, 16%.
Yeah.
4,099 first preferences. These are nearly half the boxes tallied, okay? Ronan Cleary, 3%, 801 votes. Frank Conway, 1.1%, 269. David Cullinan, 26%, 6,721. John Cummins, 18% of the first preference, 4,624. Patrick Curtin, 1.2%, 310 votes. Conor McGuinness, 9.2% first preference, that's 2,350. Aaron Joyce, independent, 0.4%, 92 votes. Killian Mangan, independent, 1.5%, 378 votes. Mark O'Cohisick, 3.1%, 808 votes. Mark O'Neill, 0.2%, that is 48 votes. We have then Sive O'Neill, Labour, 2.8%, 713. Mary Roach, 5.6%, 1,447. Matt Shanahan, 10%, 2,578. And John D. Walsh, 0.9%, 235. And these tally figures will be increasing as we go, and we'll refer to them back in a few minutes. So, Paul, just hold the microphone up there towards you a little bit closer. Paul Mooney, as I say, the editor of the Munster Express, will be joined by some party workers then in a few minutes and councillors. Paul, what's your take on what we've learned so far this morning?
It looks as if David Cullinan is making a repeat of what he did last time. He's really, he's really pulling the votes in, the first preferences. He seems to be polling strong there in, is it Tramore and City West, City East and City South. Whereas his running partner Conor McGuinness will obviously be polling strong in the Dungarvan area. But
between the two of them,
yes,
they look like they could be getting around 35% of first preferences.
That's correct, yeah. If I remember the last time, David Cullinan polled 38 point something. So they're up there. So I think that vote is still there, even despite what was said before today. Like, people thought that their vote was down. But it seems that their vote's staying up there. And
now, in terms of the other parties, we're looking at Fine Gael, approximately 17.5%, 18% of first preferences.
Yes.
They'll be very happy with that.
They'll be delighted. I see John Cummins' first preferences there. He's hot on the heels of David Cullinan. The last time they ran two candidates would split the vote. So this time you have all those Fine Gael voters voting for one candidate. So I think Cummins has a good, strong chance for a seat.
Now we're looking again around 16% for Mary Butler first preferences.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of those boxes that have been tallied so far are in the east. There is a smattering from the west, Ballyduff Upper, but she'll be expecting to get more of the county votes. But 15.5%, 16%, not bad. That will be very good for Mary Butler.
Definitely, yeah. And I did notice that she has a strong vote there in Dungarvan. She's there was a city vote there, but definitely in Dungarvan where she has the office space, like, you know, yeah.
And then Matt Shanahan polling at around 10%, which is good for Matt Shanahan, and that certainly puts him in a very strong position.
He's in a very strong position, and that incident during the week there with the hospital and the sign doesn't seem to have affected him. I'd say he'd be a contender for that last seat. Like, he'd be very strong for that.
So at the minute then, Conor McGuinness hoping that David Cullinan will get a surplus and enough of a surplus to transfer back to him. So let's say Cullinan does get 12,500, 13,000 votes.
Yes.
There will be a surplus there.
Yes.
That could then mean that if it works out, Conor McGuinness could get another 2,000 or 3,000 votes from that. But again, this is all to play for.
That's true, yeah. But it's after that, then it's hard to see where those votes are going, or the transfers are going to come from, because it's just anecdotal. But when I was wandering around, I saw Mary Butler, Matt Shanahan, and John Cummins, and the votes were 1, 2, 3, not in that order, but that's where the 1, 2, 3s were going, where Sinn Féin didn't feature.
Okay. We also then have a number of other parties, the Labour Party, we have Sive O'Neill, we have Mary Roach from the Social Democrats. I'm going to talk about a number of other machinations in a few minutes, but briefly and finally, if you don't mind, Paul, the Green Party. They increased their vote locally and nationally at the last general election, approximately 7.2% of first preferences. We're looking at here around 3.5% of first preferences.
Yes.
On that, it looks like Mark O'Connell is going to lose his seat.
It definitely does, yeah. I think Mary Roach seems to have taken up a lot of that because she's polling very strong in those tallies. So I think, Mary Roach has hoovered up those votes.
And depending on how people go out and the order in which they are eliminated, again, there hasn't been any vote officially counted yet. These are all just tallies. They're only 48%. You might bring it up on screen again there for us, Dean, and we'll just explain to our listeners on Daisha in terms of the tallies and where we are at the minute. So basically all the tally sheets are being brought over to a special room 136 steps away from here, if you have got a big step like me, a big gate, and they are being compiled and put together on a computer system. So we now have over 50% of the boxes tallied. And again, I won't go through them all individually. Cullinan, 25% of first preferences. Cummins, 18% of first preferences. Mary Butler, 17% of first preferences. Conor McGuinness, 9.5% of first preferences. Matt Shanahan, 10% of first preferences. Mary Roach, 5.5% of first preferences. So that's what we're looking at. Paul, it's going to be an exciting afternoon, an exciting evening.
It is. Looks like it's going to be a dogfight for the very last seat.
A dogfight. And I have our little polar bear here beside us on our Daisha couch. You're on Peter Couch, by the way. That's the name of our couch.
Okay, Peter
Couch. Yeah, you got that. We haven't got a name for our polar bear. Any names you'd like to give it? Come up with one. We'll come back to it later.
Yeah, okay.
Stay with us. We're back in a few minutes. We're going to be talking to Councillor Jim Darcy about not just Fine Gael's showing so far, but also his thoughts on where transfers might well go. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special Daisha Today, the first of many Daisha Todays on the wonderful WLR. We are broadcasting across many different wavelengths. We are focusing for the next hour on radio, but we are also on television in terms of the special television system that we have set up with SETU Audio Visual, and Keane is there on that. And we've got some pictures going out online now on Facebook Live, on our YouTube, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, and many other formats. Joining me now on the Daisha Couch, and we have renamed the Daisha Couch. We're calling him Peter Couch for the weekend. Councillor Jim Darcy, Fine Gael. Do you like the name Peter Couch?
Peter Couch is fine, yeah.
We've got a little polar bear there beside us because no matter what happens, climate warming is one of the big issues.
True.
But that wasn't reflected in the vote for the Greens.
And someone's going to be out in the cold at the end of this.
Oh, hey! Jim, thanks for coming up to our studio. I really appreciate it. Firstly, the tallies are saying approximately 17% of first preferences for Fine Gael.
Yes, yeah.
You are a Fine Gael councillor. Your reaction, please.
Well, we're happy. We're happy. It's what we were expecting, from the doors. It was a good campaign. John Cummins led a very, very good campaign. It's a very good team he has around him, and he's the work done. So we're not taken aback. It's as expected. I've just come actually from the tally of the Dungarvan box, and he's done very well in Dungarvan, as has Mary Butler and Conor McGuinness. So they were the three. He was nearly the top of that box that I was just watching one box. That's the work on the ground. That's his office. He's a brilliant office there, Brandon in the office. So that's kind of shown through. So the Fine Gael vote is holding up. So we're delighted with that. And
for people that know or don't know the constituency, I think it's the first time, maybe in the history of, certainly the last 30, 40 years, that Fine Gael has only ran one candidate in the area.
Yeah.
Don't know if it ever happened before, did it?
No, and we had to learn. We had to learn from the last time. We had the quota the last time, and we lost out in the seat. It was the first time in over 100 years. It goes back as far as Parnell, Fine Gael seat in Waterford. So we had to kind of start from scratch and rebuild. So we didn't take any chances. We had one candidate, well-known candidate. I think John is in the Senate. At times he's done so well. He's plugged the gap for Fine Gael from the Senate. At times you forget that he isn't a TD. But hopefully before this day is out, he will be one.
And just to remind our listeners and our viewers, the 2020 election, Fine Gael ran two candidates within the constituency, and John Cummins got 4,592 first preference. That was 8.54%. Damien Gagan got 8%, 7.98. That's 4,289.
Yeah.
So they split the vote.
We split the vote,
and the hope was at the last election that one would get the other over the line, or even possibly if there was a bit of a tie, that both would get elected.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, and you ended up falling between two stools.
That's right.
So Damien Gagan obviously decided to step back, and fair play to him, but he rode in fully behind John Cummins,
he did,
and his team rode in.
He did.
So there have been divisions, as we know, Jim, and it hasn't been denied. Maurice Cummins has said this. The party has been divided in certain areas under certain personalities in the past.
That's true, but to be fair to John, even the fact that he asked me to come back, I was 10 years out of politics, local councillor. I wasn't, I wasn't active, and he came back. He came to me and said, "Look," I said, "We're looking for you to come back." He's trying to galvanise. It's not like it was in the past with the infighting. That there were different groups. That happens with two candidates. Let that be said too. And he said, "No, we're a united team." And so he brought me back, and I came back really to get him elected. And I'm hoping more for John. To be honest, I think he has the potential. I really do think he has the potential to be a minister.
Yep. Now, I was talking to Damien Gagan this morning before the polling stations opened, before the count centre opened. He was very happy with the canvass.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen it on the ground, and I've seen it talking to different people, and the votes he got in the local elections, very strong. Sean Power, Liam Brazel, getting Niamh O'Donovan elected over in the West. I suppose not worrying about the Ducey thing. And then getting a big vote. I think Damien got around 1,400, 1,500 first preferences for Fine Gael in Dungarvan. John then obviously had his vote. So combining all of those, and if you look at those combined votes from the last time, percentage-wise, and 17% of the first preferences, there is a possibility that Fine Gael could get 10,000 first preference votes in Waterford.
Yeah. Well, that would be fantastic. That would be, but it doesn't just come from nowhere. Like it does come down to you mentioned some of the councillors out in the county that they're just so hard working. They really are. We're in every community, and that's what it's about. We're on the ground. It doesn't happen overnight. I have to say that about John Cummins. Like his work rate is second to none, and we're lucky to have him. To lead the Fine Gael team here. Within the county, and it really has. I can't say that enough because I'm at this a long time now. This is 20 odd years in politics. And I've seen at different elections, and it really matters when the team gets together and when people work together. It's amazing what can be done.
And I'm in this constituency reporting on elections since 1997, and I'm involved in journalism for more than 30 years. I have never seen Fine Gael as united in this constituency ever before.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Now, having said that, it's one candidate does help. Let's be honest about that.
Everybody has to row in.
Exactly. Yeah, or exactly. And also, like I found this election, it was an easy campaign in the sense that I found that there wasn't the same level of people upset. That there wasn't that anger that was out there. Like for instance, in other elections that I've run in, we found that it was an easy canvas in a lot of ways. Yes, obviously, we've met people that weren't happy, but along the way. But by and large, it was a good canvas. People are happy where they're at.
If we can get up on the screen there, folks, if Eddie or Keane can get up on the screen the very latest tallies. So we now have 60% of the boxes tallied. Again, I won't run through them all individually. I'll just give you the headline figures. 60% of the first preference vote tallied. They're only tallies. This can fluctuate and will, but it'll give you an indication where we're at the minute. David Cullinan, 24% of first preferences. That's 7,600 votes. John Cummins, 19% of first preferences. 6,100 votes. Mary Butler, 17% of first preferences. 5,400. Matt Shanahan, 9.8%. That's 3,142 first preferences. And then moving down the line, Conor McGuinness, 10%, 3,346. Actually, Conor is just slightly ahead of Matt Shanahan at the minute. We also then have a number of people on lower percentages. Mary Roach, 5.3%, Sive O'Neill, 2.7%, Mark O'Cosick, 3%. All those votes will come into play as the day proceeds. Okay? So the headline figures there in terms of Cullinan going very well, Mary Butler going very well, John Cummins going very well, Conor McGuinness and Matt Shanahan kind of neck and neck at the minute, and others then will come into play. Very briefly and finally, if you don't mind, Councillor Jim Darcy, the Green Party on 3%. Mark O'Cosick is going to lose his seat.
He is, yeah, unfortunately, and that's not easy. That's not easy for him on a personal level, and he has done a lot of good work. But the Greens were in trouble from the start, and especially in this constituency with the airport. That was crazy stuff. That the minister just, no matter what was happening, he wasn't going to open an airport. A Green minister couldn't be seen to open up an airport.
Did you see that as an opportunity? Did you make hay on this?
Well, I wouldn't say we made hay on it, but we were clear. We were very clear to have it in our manifesto. That we will deliver. Fine Gael will deliver. That's our aim, to deliver the airport. The extension.
But he's a government TD, and John Cummins is part of the government. It was like you basically were trying to put daylight between yourselves and the Greens, and basically let the Greens take the blame for this.
Well, that's because they were to blame for it. Quite frankly, that he wouldn't bring the memo, he wouldn't bring it to Cabinet so that it could be passed. That's what happened. It was stalled. That's the truth.
Do you think the airport may well have cost Mark O'Cosick his seat?
Not alone. Yeah, it was part of it. I think a lot of people. It's the tinkering around. It's the kind of. It's when you're stuck in traffic. Say, for instance, in my area, and you have cycle lanes that are going nowhere. They just suddenly stop. That's the kind of stuff. It's the crazy stuff. I think that is holding the Greens back.
Yeah, but Fine Gael, hold on now a second. We won't get into local politics, but Fine Gael have been in power in the local electoral system for many years, so you can't blame a cycle lane that stops and goes nowhere on the Greens. You're part of this.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing that you're trying to distinguish yourselves, but surely to God you're part of it.
Well, we're part of the government, obviously the last government.
But you're part of the electoral system within the council, and even though you haven't been there for the last 10 years, You can't go blaming a bicycle lane that goes nowhere on Marco Kozik.
I take the point, but at the same time, I think that I take the point, but I just do believe that nationally, I think the Greens are in trouble, and in this election, and I don't think that I'm kind of just conscious as well at this time. It's hard for him. I can see. I know what that's like, and look, I wish you the very best, and I'm sure that's not the last we'll see of him either.
Yeah. And as I say, I have a polar bear here on the couch, a little teddy Christmas polar bear, because climate change and climate crisis is going to be the biggest thing facing humanity in the next few years, and it is at the minute. There is a bigger picture here on this that we have to keep it in mind. And you've adopted a lot in Greens in many respects.
We have, of course, all the parties have, but obviously it's huge. We know that, but. Look, we won't rerun the election. That's for another day. But can I just say, Damien, that from coming down from the count, which is going to be very interesting, is that the discipline is very good on the Sinn Féin vote. I've looked at it, like even say the Dungarvan box, for instance, there was very little in it for Cullinan. They're obviously they're managing their vote very well, as is Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. The preferences seem to be going towards one another, one or two. So it'll be very interesting when it comes down to this last seat.
Call it.
Well, I don't know. It all depends, at this stage. It all depends on how big a surplus David Cullinan has. That's the key to it. If I was to call it at the moment, I'd say Matt Chan will take it. I think he'll just about take it.
There we go. It'll be tight.
It will be very tight.
Squeaky bum time.
Yeah.
Councillor Jim Darcy, Fine Gael, thank you very much for joining us on the Daisha couch, Peter couch. We're going to be talking to Joe Kelly now in a second. And thank you very much, Cian and Eddie, for all you're doing, and Jennifer for producing. Stay with us. Back in a few minutes. Now, welcome back to a special Daisha today. We're live from 11 o'clock till 12. We will have another programme from 1 till 2. We'll be back live on the special Waterford television. You can call it our election special, and you can access all this courtesy of the brilliant team here at SETU Audio Visual, and some European funding, which is brilliant, showing democracy in action. We have Eddie up here helping us as well with Dean in terms of the editing of the shots. On the Daisha couch, Peter Couch, we have Joe Kelly. He was a good player, Peter Crouch, wasn't he?
Oh, very good.
Wasn't too bad, yeah. Do you like Peter Couch? Do you like that?
It's very nice.
Not too bad. Thank you very much for joining us, Independent Councillor Joe Kelly. Joe, you have been supporting Matt Shanahan, correctly?
That's correct.
You've been out canvassing for him?
Yes.
Again, you can speak up a little bit if you want, because it's a good microphone.
Okay.
What's your thoughts at the minute?
I think it's falling pretty much as most people predicted. David Cullinan has polled very, very well. John Cummins has polled very strongly as well, followed by Mary Butler. And then there's a kind of a close enough tie almost between Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness of Sinn Féin. So it looks to me already that the first 3 seats will be, I would say, David Cullinan, John Cummins and Mary Butler. And then it's a real scrap, I think, for the final seat between Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness. That's how I think it's going to play out. That's how it looks like, with about 60-65% of tallies done.
You're involved in politics for many years. You're very au fait with the tally system. It's a brilliant system. As you know, we've been going live on our different media platforms, Facebook and YouTube. And in particular, go on to the WR website. The quality and the link from that to the YouTube video is amazing. We're on LinkedIn and TikTok. You've seen how they work. You've also been looking at some of the transfers. Again, this is not a scientific judgment that you're making, but it's your own thoughts in terms of seconds and thirds. What have you seen so far?
Yeah, I've been watching. Well, I was doing the tallies, as you said, and I was watching. Obviously, we had people calling the first and second, a caller, as we call it, and I'd be writing it on the sheet. So I was able to take a glance at the sheets. And it seemed that Sinn Féin are transferring very well within each themselves, like between David Cullinan and Conor McGuinness, and to some degree McGuinness back to Cullinan. But the general trend from both Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and even some of the smaller parties were into Matt Shanahan's. So Shanahan was picking up thirds and fourths and fifths from people who you would expect to be eliminated as the count proper continues. On that basis, it would suggest that Shanahan will probably get more transfers than Conor McGuinness. And the real test is going to be the surplus that David Cullinan has and the amount of that surplus that then transfers to Conor McGuinness. Conor will definitely need that cushion, because the general transfers will more than likely come to Matt Shanahan in greater numbers.
The way I read it is that if Conor McGuinness can get 6,500 first preferences, and if David Cullinan gets 15,000 first preferences, and if the quota is around 11,500, you will have, let's say there's 3,000 of a surplus that Cullinan would hope would go directly to McGuinness. If that's the case, and if those figures are around right, that brings McGuinness up to 9,500, nearly 10,000.
That's correct.
Then, will he get other transfers from others? Will he get transfers from Sive O'Neill? Or are those transfers going to be going more to Matt Shanahan?
Yeah. From what I've seen, and I've talked to some of the other tally people that was around, they tend to be going towards Matt Shanahan. So Conor will get very close with the transfers off of David Cullinan, but whether it's enough to get him over the line. Now, he'll always pick up a few scraps as you go through the count, as everybody does, but the majority of the later transfers are certainly going Matt Shanahan's way from the tallies. So Shanahan might just pip him at the post.
So even
it's going to be really close.
People can watch this. Even if McGuinness gets ahead of Shanahan after the second count, let's say, we'll presume, again, it's only a presumption based on tallies, that Cullinan will probably exceed the quota. Let's say he does get ahead of Shanahan. Shanahan is then in a position to be picking up transfers.
That's what it'll look like. As each count goes on, you'll find that, and certainly Conor McGuinness will be ahead of Matt Shanahan after the David Cullinan election when he's declared. but Shanahan will start picking up. On each round, he'll start picking up 50 or 100 here and there and start to close the gap. So it'll come right down to the wire between those two.
It could be a very late night. And he did a very good campaign. He worked very hard. He had dozens out on the streets different nights, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He often had 4 separate teams out in different areas of the city and county with numbers of between 15 and 20 on each canvas. So I think Matt had put in a great campaign. I think his team, and I was part of it for not all of it, for some of it, did really well. They were all clued into pretty much what you say on the doors, and if you're not getting a first preference at a door, they were reminded before the canvas to ask for seconds or even thirds, because as you're going to see now in this election, the thirds, fourths, fifths, and probably even down to the ninths are going to be really important.
And I spoke to a number of people who said he was one of the TDs that got back to people. He was constantly getting back to people and following up on queries where some people didn't necessarily do that.
No, and he's very good at that now. In fairness to Matt, I'm fairly honest when it comes to elections. He tends to be good at that type of work.
Yeah, he does.
And any issues I had at a local level that I had to refer on to, say, a national level, if I put it on to Matt and Emer, they'd be back to me, in a day or two with some kind of an answer. So he's very good at that kind of stuff.
Very finally, there's no votes being counted officially yet. It looks like Mark O'Cossack is going to lose his seat. Your thoughts, please, because it's a sad day when somebody loses their seat.
I think it is. It's very sad on the person and probably lesser extent for their party, but on an individual level, Mark is a very, very nice man, a hard worker, and he did his best for his party. Unfortunately for them, in my view, an awful lot of people moved away from, because of the way they I suppose, implemented their green agenda policies. Now, climate change is here for certain, and well, if not every week, we're seeing it certainly every month somewhere, some major disaster. So I think what Mark and indeed the Green Party in Ireland tried to do, they nearly tried to solve the problems of the world with Ireland. And even if you solved every green issue in Ireland, it would have almost a negligible impact worldwide.
As you know, you've had big rows with Christina Kiley over the years. She lost her seat about active travel matters and all that thing. We don't have to get into that now, but people have different ways. Everybody, the vast majority of people accept climate change is there, but how to weave our way through it.
How to put your way through it, exactly. I saw your previous speaker, Councillor Darcy's, talking about cycle paths going nowhere and so on. That is an issue, and we can pretend it's not, but it is.
But you're part of the council.
Yes. So I oppose cycle paths.
You're to blame for the cycle path to go nowhere.
Well, I certainly disagree with cycle paths that don't have an end destination. I think it has to be more thought out.
It does.
But in fairness to Mark, I think he held up his end of what he had to do very, very well. And he's an honourable man, there's no question. And Mark put his party point across very well.
Did the airport issue, in one word, put the final nail in the coffin for Mark O'Cossack's campaign?
In one word, yes. There's no question about that. And I don't believe the airport was ever going to get the go-ahead with Eamon Ryan. I think with a new Minister for Transport, we have a right chance of that.
Joe Kelly, thank you very much for joining me, Independent Councillor. And again, we'll hear an awful lot more. Before we go to the ad break, actually, we'll take the latest tallies after the ad break.
Gor Mila Mahag, good Damien. Gor Mila Mahag.
Fáilte Road Show, Slán go fóill. Welcome back to this Dacia Today special. We have the Dacia Couch, and it's called Peter Couch for the day that's in it. He's a well-known footballer from Britain. He does a few podcasts as well, Dara Jane. Did you know that?
I didn't know,
Yeah,
but here we are.
There we are. Mary Francis, editor of News and Star, is joining us as well, and we're delighted to have you here. And we've got our special studio set up upstairs in the outside broadcast centre, we can call it, for the day that's in it. And some brilliant pictures being done there by Keane and by Dean as well. And we have had a marvellous team working with us all day in terms of Pat and Kyle and Keane and Kieran and so many others as well. So you can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and this thing called TikTok. I don't know what that is. Mary Francis is laughing here. And the big thing is that Kyle went to get some coffees and didn't bring one back for me. Dara Jane, can you talk about that, please?
It's very disappointing.
I'll tell you.
It's very. But I did bring Luke's
worse than the airport
and
not getting
jellies
the
for
go-ahead.
everyone. So
the Haribo jellies.
Yeah, exactly.
And for all our Dacia Today listeners, we're now going to give you an update on the very latest tallies. So we have a screen which is coming up now, and it's giving us a figure, and I'm going to read through them very quickly, and I'll do it alphabetically, and then we'll pick out the main figures. We've 70% of the boxes tallied, okay? 70% of the boxes tallied. That means we are still not at a full tally, probably a full tally within the next hour. They're doing brilliant work down there, okay? So I'm going to get first percentages, that's all they are. I'm going to round them up very slightly, but first percentages and approximate vote in terms of first percentage tallies. Again, 70% boxes. Here we go. Mary Butler, 18%, 6,700 votes. Ronan Cleary, Ain2, 3%, 1,400. Frank Conway, Independent, 1%, 389. David Cullinan, 24%, 9,000 votes. John Cummins, 19%, 7,000 votes. Patrick Curtin, People Before Profit, 1.2%, 449 votes. Conor McGuinness, 10.5%, 4,000 votes. Aaron Joyce, Independent, 0.3%, 123. Killian Mangan, Independent, 1.2%, 464. Mark O'Cosig, Green Party, 3.1%, 1,100. Mark O'Neill, Independent, 0.2%, 64 votes. Sive O'Neill, Labour, 2.7%, 1,000 votes. Mary Roach, Social Democrats, 5.3%, 2,000 votes. Matt Shanahan, 9.8%, 3,600. John D. Walsh, 0.8%, 309 votes. Okay. Dara Jane, tell us a little bit about yourself. You are working with Fianna Fáil, is that correct?
Well, I think I'm a bit more just here myself today. I've always been really interested in politics and obviously have been, really involved with tallies and elections and everything like that. So I'm glad now everyone's working so hard downstairs, but I'm not really involved in the tallies, so the pressure's off a bit.
Perfect. What's your read on what you've just seen and what I've just read out?
I think it's really interesting, and I was one of those people that from 2020 I remember standing exactly here and talking about this, that I said Sinn Féin would take 2 seats in Waterford the next time. A lot has fluctuated over the last kind of 4 years, but we're kind of seeing that come to pass now. Obviously that last seat will really be up for grabs, and there'll be a dogfight with transfers and everything like that, but I find it really interesting that we kind of have our 3 main players here as expected: Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, David Cullinan obviously, but I really do think Sinn Féin are in with a shout here for a second seat.
A number of other people are saying that Matt Shanahan will be more transfer friendly. He will be further ahead and high enough ahead of the likes of Mary Roach to keep him in the race, and they're indicating that if he stays in the race, he may well be able to sneak it at the end.
That's it, and I think it'll be interesting with Mary Roach's transfers as well, given that when Mary vacated her council seat, Matt was co-opted. He was then elected to the Dáil, and then Mary returned to her council seat, so it'll be very interesting to see if there's a transfer there between Mary to Matt.
And Mary's not gone just yet, so for example, if Sive O'Neill and the others, and if she stays ahead of, for example, Mark Costick, which she will do, again, you just don't know. Now, I don't think she's going to have enough at this stage to overtake Matt Shanahan.
No, but I do think it's kind of another horse in the race that maybe people didn't see. She's having a really good day out today as the boxes are open again. We're only at 70%, but I think it really will be interesting to watch. You'd nearly say it's almost a 6-for-4 race now.
Okay, Mary Francis, editor of the News and Star. What's your take on the tallies as what we've seen them?
It looks very good for Sinn Féin at the moment. But as Dara Jane is saying there, Mary Roach's and the Social Democrats vote, I think that's quite interesting that that's a very strong Social Democrats vote. Labour much further behind at the minute. And where those transfers will go, they could be very supportive of Matt Shanahan. But at the minute, just looking at the vote that Mark O'Cahasig got the last time, he was just shy of 4,000 votes, and Conor McGuinness looks well on track to get to hitting the 4,000 at the minute. So does Matt Shanahan. So it's difficult to call. The West Waterford transfer is there, of course, as well, and that will be very favourable to Conor McGuinness without other candidates in the West Waterford field. So, yeah. A very good day for Sinn Féin, though, by all accounts.
At the minute, it's looking a combined first preference tally between David Cullinane and Conor McGuinness of close on 34 to 35%. That's a phenomenal performance by Sinn Féin.
Definitely for Waterford. It shows Sinn Féin in a very, very strong position in Waterford. John Cummins has had a good day, it looks like. And it looks like he could take the second seat. Again, it depends on the way the transfers pan out. Mary Butler also looks like she's in a fairly secure position. But the leading party now, very much so in Waterford, is Sinn Féin.
And again, depending on how the cookies crumble across the country, we could see Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael getting back into government again. If Waterford has two Sinn Féin TDs, it mightn't be looked on very favourably by the government.
No, and it's a difficult one, isn't it? I suppose Waterford, maybe this is reflecting the big ticket issues that weren't achieved during the current government, the fact that Sinn Féin is dominating in this constituency. But where will those big ticket issues lie in the next government if Sinn Féin is not part of the government? If Matt Shanahan gets in as an independent, he would say that he always fights for Waterford on the outside, but it would be Sinn Féin and an independent.
And then there's talk that John Cummins, and he said this repeatedly during his campaign, that he will be, if he is elected, the most senior Fine Gael politician in the southeast. So if Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael get back in, he could well be made a minister. I wouldn't see Mary Butler then saving her ministry if they won't have two ministers in one constituency, one four-seater. But let's say if Sinn Féin decide to cobble together or do get enough votes together, then you'll see definitely David Cullinane being. So there's an awful lot to play for.
It's very hard to see Sinn Féin having a pathway to government at the moment, with the way the voting is going. But it's very interesting nationally. You know, we'll have to look at it nationally. But the split of the vote does look like it's going to go back to Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael again. I mean, there's going to be a long number of days ahead of.
There certainly
discussions.
Will. Pass the microphone back there, if you wouldn't mind, to Dara Jane for a minute. Dara Jane, in terms of the Greens, I want to talk about Mark O'Cahasig, as I just said to the others. It looks like he's not going to retain his seat. A sad day on a personal level for anybody of any political party when they lose their seat.
That's it. And look, I think it's really hard, and fair play to any candidate across the country of any party or none who has put their name on the ballot paper. It is incredibly difficult on yourself, your family, your teams, and the work that goes in from top to bottom on a campaign is unbelievable, and so anyone should be commended. And it's an awful day to look at someone losing their seat or to not get elected. I think Mark has done a lot of good work. I think he's tried his best. I think he was elevated quite quickly onto the Greens negotiating team after the last election and kind of going into government. I just don't think there's enough there that people can tangibly feel for the Greens on the ground that there was a green wave the last time. It's not there this time. We saw it in the locals. I think the writing was very clearly on the wall, given they lost their councillors down here the last time. And I just think issues like the airport or any kind of big things in terms of delivering for Waterford in government, Mark wasn't really near it. So
yeah, they did a lot of good things, like the local transport links, the local links. That was a big thing for them in terms of the reductions. Somebody's phone over there, folks. In terms of the productions that they're having regarding transport, public transport, really good work and all that sort of stuff as well. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, I think, took their clothes as well. And also then you have a lot of pushback, as Joe said, in terms of how we get to the next stage.
Yeah, that's it. And I think a big thing about it is that ownership over issues. And big party machines like Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, even Matt to an extent as an independent on his own, they really kind of, as soon as something was announced or funding was announced or something like the local links, they really take ownership of that in their kind of home areas or their local areas.
You think the Greens were too soft? Do you think they undersold themselves?
Yeah, I think so. I think you really need to have a big bite in politics. You need to have that machine behind you. You know, you need to be on with yourself on day to day.
Not even having a machine. Like Marco Kosik used to do a bit of hurling, right, with Butlerstown. And I used to say to him, you'd want to use the elbows more.
Yeah.
When you're in politics, and he didn't use the elbows enough, and the Greens didn't sing and shout from the rooftops the good things that they thought they were doing.
No, I don't think so at all nationally, and then as you trickle down to it locally, they didn't. And I always say anyone in the Green Party that I've dealt with, they are so nice, they are lovely people. Too nice, I would say.
Put it back to Mary Frances there for a quick second. Dean, we'll just get that latest tally up now just before we go to the ad break. We're going to have an awful lot more on news now. Kyle and Kieran are doing extended bulletins on the hour, and Jordan is back at base. We're going to have Dimpna here for the afternoon as well. We're going to be continuing all our television output as well on our various platforms. As I say, in a way, you're blessed here in Waterford to have this amazing link up with SETU and Dean and Pat in WLR. Thanks to Michael back at base and everybody involved, Paula and Ray and everybody involved in relation to that. Now, the very latest tallies, the screen is just coming back up there. We now have 71% of all the boxes tallied. Okay, we'll nearly have a full tally by 1 o'clock. We won't go through them all, Mary Frances, but we're looking basically 23.5% for David Cullinane, Conor McGuinness 10.5%. So between the two of them, we're nearly at 35% first preferences for Sinn Féin. Isn't that right?
Yes, it's looking very strong for Sinn Féin, but of course Matt Shanahan is going to be very transfer friendly. And
he's on 9.7% of first preferences, 3,657 votes tallied.
Yeah, and a huge portion of voters have voted for independence in this election. You know, maybe not as their first preference, but second preferences and down the line.
Do you think the hospital thing last week had an effect on Matt Shanahan? It doesn't look like it.
It's hard to say, to be honest. Some people might have thought that was distasteful, and others would say he was trying to highlight what he had campaigned on so strongly, you know, since the get-go. So it's very hard to say.
Yeah, and it looks like, again, that vote is solid in terms of 10% of the first preferences. Mary Roach, I think she needs around 4,000 first preferences to be in the race. At the minute, she's only looking at 2,000, and Mark Kosik's only at around 1,100 at the minute. John Cummins, nearly 19 to 20% of first preferences. Really strong vote for Fine Gael.
John Cummins should be very happy with that, I would imagine. And an interesting one just to throw out there is if Matt Shanahan got elected, what would happen next? Because he hasn't ruled out moving to political party, which could change the landscape in Waterford altogether.
You're really, you know, I don't like stirring the pot. I've never been known to stir the pot before, but that's some pot that you're stirring there now. It's still stirring, I tell you now. Matt Shanahan to join. Oh God, here we go. We'll see. Mary Frances, thank you very much. You could well be right.
Damien.
You could well be right. You've heard it here first on Peter Couch on our